we then cut to the grocery store. And as they enter, June smiles. June smiles at this welcome culture shock. And Luke and Moira seem trepidatious at first. They're very hesitant as they walk with her. We find ourselves in an aisle with June and Luke. And June's inquiring, like, what happened to potato chips in the last 7 years? And hallelujah, we get a time marker, finally.
So exciting.
7 years in Gilead. But we don't have time to reminisce on that. It's a blip on the radar screen. It's just so nice to have that, like, trail marker. Because Luke then says, like, they made them healthy. Can you believe it? And it's like an attempt at a benign conversation. And before they can really delve into this benign conversation, Moira comes skating around the corner, and Luke and Moira have the benign, entirely normal, candid conversation that I feel like June is craving at this point.
Well, she's like witnessing the parenting of her child happening in front of her, and she's not invited to participate.
Yeah.
Like,
Hello,
that's the
in
weird
Gilead,
thing. Like,
elsewhere.
hi, I'm over
It's
here. Like, I realized that I was sidetracked by these potato chips, but hi. It's just really odd for her. This is another way that she feels out of place and out of touch and just disconnected from everything. And it's even in the care of her own child.
Yeah.
And that's just got to be really weird. And their banter is funny. I like how they problem solve here. Okay, cool. And then Moira goes skating off with the kid, and Luke is like, yeah, life with a 1-year-old. And I'm like, that was a really stupid thing to say, buddy. She knows what life is like with a 1-year-old. And I really am annoyed that he said that. And Roxy, I could see your face. All right, go for it.
It's less of an annoyance for me that he says, like, life with a 1-year-old, and more like when Moira is skating off after grabbing that diaper that he throws, and she's skating off around the corner. She's like, okay, love you. And he responds with love you. And that's where June, like, looks back and forth at the two of them. And I think, like, that's where June acknowledges in her own brain that she's like, these are not the same people that I left 7 years ago. These are not the same people that I knew 7 years ago, because the Moira and Luke that she knows would absolutely never share those same constellations with each other. So, like, I think it's jarring for her that, like, she has to watch the parenting of her own child happen in front of her when neither of them have an actual biological connection to Nicole. But I think, like, that for her is a much more jarring issue.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know. I feel like that line, it was the last line, the life with a 1-year-old, that stopped me in my tracks. Like, obviously, yeah, like, all of it, the entire interaction was very much, whoa, who are these people and what has happened with this family? But at the end of the day, it's still watching two people raise her child without consulting her. And then when she responds with, like, when she's just watching the interaction, and for Luke to say life with a 1-year-old as if she hadn't experienced it with him, it's almost as obtuse as Serena, but it's worse because he's the father. He knows that she knows this. And oh, I just hated that line. I was like,
that's what I was
really?
getting at. That's what because it's like, yeah, no kidding, dude. Like, and for him to say that to her, it makes her feel more forgotten, because she's like, yeah, I was in it with you, dipshit. I know what life with a 1-year-old is like. The appropriate thing, it's so awkward and painful. Like, the appropriate thing for him to say, not even the thing that would make sense for him to say is, remember this? Or something like that. Not life with a 1-year-old, like she doesn't already know. Like, yeah, I know. And it's life with my 1-year-old.
Right.
Too.
Right.
Her 1-year-old that
we already did it with.
Yeah, her kid that they already did it with, but her one that she's watching two other people with no biological connection raising her child. And do you two think that maybe, like, this is one of the this perhaps is a reason that she starts to spiral down into that anxiety rabbit hole that we see in the middle of the grocery store?
Yeah, because everything that she expected, and I don't know if what she expected to come back to, but I think that what she sees now that she's back is that Gilead has ruined everything. She's back here and it doesn't matter because it looks like her best friend and her husband are playing house with her child from her lover in Gilead. Like, it's all just very complicated. And of course, this is all going to take time, and it's all very fresh to her, and it's all jarring. And I'm not saying that any of this isn't stuff that she can work through. And obviously, Moira and Luke's intentions are way better than Gilead's intentions of raising June's child, but it's just rings of in Gilead as elsewhere. She's just watching two other people raise her child without a question of it. There's no like, oh, did you want to, push the kid down the street, like any of it. They just, I understand they're trying to make things easy on her, but it's just missing the mark. And then Luke just doesn't even see that there is a mark when he says that comment. And that was the comment that drove me crazy. Like, I get the quick interaction, and I totally get Moira's like it was fun to watch Moira in that role. We haven't seen Moira in mom role, and she was good at it, and it was really sweet, but also jarring. And it wasn't, but it was that last line that Luke said that made me just go, really, you're gonna say that to her? That has got to crush her in so many different ways. And for all the tiptoeing that everyone's doing around June, you'd think that would be one thing you would think through a little bit more.
Yeah. Like, how are you going to fuck that up since you're the one that lived it with her, June, with Luke?
I get that she asked him to leave, but like they all just left her standing in the aisle by herself. Like, I don't know. It was just not the way that should have gone with the benefit I have of watching from my couch.
I'm inclined to agree with you on that.
I really enjoyed the sequence of events here when they were showing the flashbacks. Like, there are so many things to trigger her right now. Like, the thing with PTSD is that you can be triggered by shit that you just didn't even see coming, and it sucks every fucking time. And she can't even look at potato chips without being triggered. Then she spots a couple of Muslim women wearing red hijab, and then we've got the bottle of water with straight up Gilead wings on it. Then the train sounds come. Handmaid's always walking too, remember? And it's so much. Serena yelling at her in particular, do you understand me? She's going to have so many struggles from here on out. There's so many things. And I know that I keep I've thrown around PTSD, but the armchair psychologist and actual CPTSD diagnosed person over here in me thinks that that's what she's dealing with is CPTSD, not PTSD. CPTSD stands for complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and the difference between that and PTSD is that PTSD usually will stem from one traumatic event, such as a disaster or a car accident, where CPTSD comes from a prolonged period of trauma, such as living in a home with domestic violence or, experiencing the horrors of war. And June has experienced the fucking gamut of horrible, horrific things that one person can experience over the course of many years. And I know that we're going to see some dark times for her, even though she's out of Gilead, because even though her direct trauma has stopped, her brain is actually hardwired right now to be on high alert, and it can take a lifetime of work to reset that. I mean, I've been in therapy off and on for 20 years, and there's still random shit that gets me, and every time I think, am I ever going to just be over this already? But no, apparently I'm not. And so I actually want to recommend a book. Where is it? It's under my yarn. I just found it recently. I cannot remember how I heard about it. It's called The Body Keeps Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma. It's by Bessel van der Kolk, MD. And I'm really enjoying the shit out of this book. I'm only halfway through, but it's just, as a person who has dealt with PTSD things all their life, it's really nice to have an understanding of how the actual what's actually happening in your brain and in your body when you are dealing with these triggers. And that's the thing, you don't know when they're you don't always know what's going to trigger you, and you can't always deal with it in a I don't know, in a constructive way. It's something that you really, really have to work on. And I appreciate having the understanding of like the actual of what actually causes the CPTSD and how to work through it. And I'll just read from the back of the book. He uses recent scientific advances to show how trauma literally reshapes both the body and the brain, compromising sufferers' capacities for pleasure, engagement, self-control, and trust. We've already had all of that in this one episode right now. It's not going to stop here. It's just not. And it makes me even more interested in her coming home now because she has a really new and very real set of challenges to like deal with, but they're internal threats now, not external. And her emotions and personality are going to suffer for it. I would put money on it.
And that's going to be jarring to everyone else who's a little bit more adjusted in Canada already. Even Moira, who knows what it's like and what she's gone through, I think it'll be different than what we've seen Moira's adjustments to be.
Yeah. It stands to reason then why she would go through this absolute tailspin. Because she hasn't had a chance to like process all of this and work through any of it.
What I really loved about that montage, well, first of all, Alma's face scared the crap out of me. So I appreciate the way that they did that because I'm sure it was equally jarring to June, who all of a sudden is seeing Alma's face, and it scared me. But right before that, you see the mother like chasing the daughter down the aisle, and then you see the two women, and one of them says, oh, something like, we deserve it, and off they continue walking happily. And it's that line that June seems to kind of zero in on, or at least what my ears zeroed in on in the interaction. So then when she turns to like look at the chips, and then it's Alma's face that just shows up, and obviously this is in June's mind at this point, and it's just, it was really well done in terms of just reminding me at least of how June is definitely on top of everything you were just talking about with her trauma. She's also has that survivor's guilt of, does she deserve to be here when shouldn't everyone else that didn't make it deserve to be here too? Alma deserved to be here.
Yes.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up, and hopefully you guys can give me more information because this is definitely not my wheelhouse, since not Scarlett's either, so Roxy. That water brand is a Star Wars reference, and that's all I know.
Oh, God, was it?
Yeah, it's like some kind of world planet. It's a planet.
I did not pick up on that. What was the name of the water brand?
Aqualay? The only reason that I know that Star Wars reference is because I Googled it, and I just wanted to know what that word was, and I was like, oh, Star Wars reference, okay, and then that's it. It seemed obscure to me. They all seem obscure to me. It's basically, it doesn't seem to have an entire relevance. The biggest point of this scene was really just that it looks exactly like the Gilead wings, and there we go. But yes, it is in fact a very obscure Star Wars reference.
Extremely, because as a latchkey kid that was raised on Star Wars, I was completely thrown off when Marjorie said this, but as it turns out, Aqualay, which is Latin plural of Aquia or eagle, is a blue-green terrestrial planet that's threatened by a space fortress that is later to become the Death Star, and it contains a starport and is home to an anonymous princess. It's very, very deep in the culture. But, I mean, it is part of the Star Wars echelon. Not nearly as important, though, as the fact that the logo for this water bottle has wings on it that very, very strongly share a similarity with the wings of Gilead. I really appreciated that this was a very real-world response to all of these stimuli. So June had this flashback where she pulled the chips aside and she looked through the lane and she saw Alma, and that sent her down this rabbit hole of recognizing the two women in the hijab, thinking that they were handmaids, and then seeing the bottled water with the wings, and it sent her through this absolute tailspin. And she needed to take that time to sit down on this stack of like whatever and catch her faculties about her. I really appreciated this because this is a very real world response to these to these external these external stimuli that are going to cause her this intense, like almost intense visceral reaction to the real world that she's coping with. I thought it was incredibly humanizing. Like, you could hear her, like, her breath trembling. You could see her quivering. And she just took everything about her to steel herself in this moment. And if ever there was a way for June to have a breakdown while she's in Canada, this is it. Because we always pride June on being as stalwart as possible and being incredibly strong. And though she of course is going to break down from time to time, when she does do it in a public arena, as is the case in this grocery store, she's able to do it in such a collected sense. So this is entirely on brand for her.
Man, grocery stores, they are not the place for her.
No, I'm like, my gosh, of all the only thing that she's allowed to have is memories of grocery stores from Gilead, right? That's like 90% of her life as a handmaid. And it's like, she can't avoid grocery shopping when she's in Canada. It's like, come on, this is brutal.
But she can avoid grocery shopping because Moira was like, I'll go do the thing. I'll go take care of it. And June volunteered to jump into that. And Moira even said, like, this might be a bit of a culture shock for you. And June's obstinance of, I've been in Gilead for 7 years. All I want is culture shock, was perhaps like, it felt a bit like Icarus. She may have just been like flying a little bit too close to the sun here, because the only culture that she was afforded when she was in Gilead, I mean, aside from the Rachel and Leah Center and like her walks, was when she was at grocery stores. And this may have hit a little bit too close to home to her, and that may have been why she had that breakdown.
Yeah, but I mean, even in the grander sense of like, just as a normal functioning human, she's going to need to go to the grocery store. And like we were talking about earlier, these triggers will come like years down the road if she's going to be at the grocery store, and she's still going to be seeing Alma, because who knows at what point, what little thing is going to trigger these constant memories. It's just so much of her duty as a handmaid was also the grocery store. And it's just, it was brutal to realize that.
Absolutely. I mean, think of it this way. Like, how often are you jarred awake, or like when you are trying to sleep, you awkwardly suddenly remember this intensely visceral, awkward event that happened 15 or 20 years in your past that had no like effect whatsoever on your future, but just like an awkward happening. So, I mean, when those sort of things pop into your psyche, it stands to perfect reason that these things in these grocery stores are going to pop into her mind at any given clip, at any given time.